Hi, I'm Heather from Here Booktubes, and today is Dubious Consent or Dubcon Romance Recommendations. So it's been a minute since I did a recommendation video. I have a large backlist of recommendation videos. That's kind of why I started my channel on. And this is one that I have not seen anybody doing, and I don't have one for it. And I like consensual non-consent. And I like kind of some dubious consent in my books. And that comes from, like, I know exactly why I like that. Mine comes from purity culture and media and the idea that you're not supposed to have sex or want sex outside of marriage. And, you know, that kind of just being ingrained in me at a very, very early age. And so a lot of my fantasies and like my thinking was like, okay, well, if I don't want it, then I didn't do anything wrong, that type of thing. Obviously consent is something that I think all humans should value. Like, I just think it shouldn't even be the topic of conversation, because it should be something that is so absolutely implied that everyone should have consent that shouldn't even be argued. However, in my fiction, sometimes I do like it. Now, this can ick me out. It can be done in ways that I enjoy. I'm a little nervous about people maybe who don't normally watch my videos seeing this one, and I would be open to doing a discussion video or a discussion panel if people want that on this, because I know some people really view it as it shouldn't exist in a romance, and I respect that, but I respectfully disagree. I think that it does have its place in romance. So these are ones that did it in a way that I still enjoyed. I still rooted for the hero. A lot of times there's other factors like culture or paranormal elements, but you know, these are the ones I liked. All right, first I have Hold by Claire Kent. This is a sci-fi romance, but it is between two humans. So humans no longer live on Earth, and there is a dictatorship, and they have prison planets because they've done away with the death penalty. So there are two different things that happen with political prisoners or anybody who, you know, does anything that they don't like. Doesn't matter what your offense is, the punishment is the same. So you could say, I've said something bad about the dictator and you get sent to a prison planet or a planet dumped, or you could be a serial killer and the same punishment would be applied to you, right? We have a female archaeologist who accidentally dug in the wrong area, and so she's been sent to this prison planet, and one of the like captains of the guard or whatever tells her, hey, we won't intervene at all, so your best bet is to find a really strong man and give him sex so he protects you from the other inmates, because otherwise you're not gonna be alive in a week. So, you know, so it's survival, have sex with someone for protection. So she does that, and they get down to it right away, and he's very conflicted about it, but he's also like the silent tortured prisoner type. Like, he's been there for a year, feels like he's losing his humanity. He was always quiet, always grumpy, and like he's not going to communicate a lot, right? And it really explores a lot about how like she won't argue with him and she won't do anything, and that like frustrates him, and she's like, you are the only thing standing between me and a horrible death. Why would I at any point risk annoying you? And so that's just a very interesting conversation. Of course, they end up falling in love and all of the things. They do have this arrangement, and it is a trope that I really like, that I've never found one that I really, really, really enjoyed. And this one for me was perfect. Like, we open up on the day that she's going to the prison planet, on the day that they meet, you know, all of the things. So obviously there's some suspense elements where, you know, they're at risk from other prisoners or things like that, but overall it's a pretty safe read as well. Then I have The Golden Dynasty, which is Fantasyland number 2 by Kristen and Ashley. This is a fantasy romance. You can read this one as a standalone. This is basically based on Khal Drogo and Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. So you have a 30-something-year-old woman who's naturally blonde from our world, and it's like a plural fantasy, parallel universe. So it's a plural fantasy in that she goes from our world to their world, but it's a parallel universe in the sense that we have doppelgangers, and the only way to go to the other world is to switch places with your doppelganger. So her doppelganger is a powerful sorceress who has been trapped in this like wife hunt thing that they do, and she switches places. So she goes to bed in her apartment, wakes up in this pen with all these other women, and is part of the bride hunt. So she literally runs, whoever captures her, beds her, and keeps her, right? and there's like a prophecy about the Golden Queen and stuff. So obviously her blonde hair is kind of viewed as a fulfillment of that prophecy. And so the leader takes her. So there is no consent at the beginning. I love this book. However, one, Kristen Ashley's writing style, not for everybody. It very much is for me, but it's not for everyone. So if you don't like it, you probably should DNF, right? The other thing is, obviously he's from a completely different culture, very patriarchal, all the things. So there's some things with that. And then also there's a big content warning for domestic abuse. There is an instance of it with our main characters, so be aware of that. But mostly is a side character, and we are watching her abuse and not able to do anything about it, and it is awful. So that was really difficult to read, and that's the main reason why I've never reread this book, although I do really want to reread it. Every time I kind of get a sinking feeling having to read about that character again. So I would be very careful with this one. However, if that Khal Drogo Khaleesi vibe is a relationship that you were into, I think that this is a really good book for that, which of course ends in a happily ever after. Then I have The Sacrifice, which is Bloodline Vampires #1 by Katee Robert. This is a polyamorous, why choose, everybody's involved with everybody else vampire romance. So we have a vampire who has been locked in a house and starved for a number of years, and then we have a vampire, which is a half vampire, half human, who is sent as the sacrifice to him. And she is the daughter of his jailer, who is, you know, an awful vampire who is trying to amass power, and he specifically wants her to get pregnant so that he would have the child of this vampire, and then he could actually make him do what he wants, since trapping him on this property has not panned out, even though he's been there for decades, right? She's sent there and he is starving, and their bites are orgasmic, and there's some questionable consent things in this. Again, in a way that I liked, but definitely there. So you have him, her, and then you have two other vampires that are equally powerful, equally old, that he has been involved with, has a long history with, and they're all going to be involved. And it's a trilogy following these characters, and it's my personal favorite of Katee Roberts' work. Then I have Chastely, Bitten, which is Blood Alliance #1 by Lexi Foss. This is another vampire romance. In this world, vampires and lycans or werewolves are ruling the world. So they came out of hiding and basically took over and have obliterated humanity. So there's hardly any humans left, and the only humans that are left are there because they need a food source. So because humans are now kind of a commodity, they are regulated in different ways, so they're sent to different places, and they have no rights. They're food, and they're meant to, you know, create more humans, and that's it. That's it. There's no rights. You can kill a human or do anything to a human with zero consequences unless that human belongs to another supernatural. Then they're their property, and you owe, you know, the paranormal. However, that human's still dead, so I mean, you know, questionable. So she has been raised as a blood virgin. So one, she's a virgin obviously, but also like she's never been bitten or anything. And she has a very specific bloodline, blood type, blood source, all the things. She's tasty. She's really tasty. And so she's a hot commodity, and there's only so many of them every year that are put up for he gets her. And he has decided that she is going to be the perfect weapon to kind of upset the power play, because she has been taught to be so subservient and so submissive that her being up to something would be impossible. So he's literally going to teach her how to think for herself and how to question what she's been taught, and also how to hide the fact that she's doing that while still being his property and also maybe his mate. So I loved it. Not everyone does. I do. And I've read like 4 books in the series and really enjoyed all of them. And I have Keeping Lily, which is Disciples #1 by Izzy Sweet and Sean Moriarty. This whole series is insta-lust, insta-love, obsessed mafia, very over the top, very popcorny, addicting, and very dubious consent. Every single one is dubious consent. So your men are going to be obsessed with their women long before their women actually want to have anything to do with them, and there's going to be some questionable overlap there. Women are always going to be attracted to them, but not necessarily wanting to be stuck with them for their entire life. So I started with Taking Megan, which is stolen from the wedding. That was my first book, but then I went back and restarted the series. This is the first book. So this is the head of the mafia, and his name is Lucifer. So they're the disciples. All of them have biblical names that they go by. So he's Lucifer, and a man owes him a lot of money. So he's looking at stuff, and he sees a picture of this man's wife, and he's like, you know what, we're gonna go visit them right now in the middle of the night. So they go into their bedroom, and they're there, and the man is like begging for his life, and he's like, take my wife, take my kids for my debt. And she is furious, like she's going to kill her husband because he just offered their children up. And Lucifer's like, deal, done, they're my family now, get out. He literally takes them and, you know, starts treating them like his family, and is just obsessed, not only with her, but also with their kids, and just gives her everything that she never had, and she tries to make him pay for it, and he's just like, that's cute, I love it. And I just love the series, I just do. There's definitely some very explicit torture scenes in the warehouse, so maybe skip those if you don't want a lot of violence, but you know, if you want insta less obsessed mafia, this is it. Then I have A Heart of Blood and Ashes, which is The Gathering of Dragons #1 by Milla Vane. This is if you like fantasy, or you like fantasy romance and you want like the actual immersive fantasy book that's like 600 plus pages, you know, that type of thing. This is the book for you. This is perfection in my opinion. I know not everyone sees it that way, but they're wrong. So we have a princess who has been locked in a tower her entire life. She is disabled from an injury that did not heal well. She's also very fragile from being locked in a tower her whole life, but she has a lot of knowledge because of her mother and some goddesses and things like that. So she is unbelievably brilliant, right? And she escapes her tower basically. However, she's in the hands of this man who believes that his parents were killed because of her. So he's out for revenge. But his people are like the Plainlands people. They ride horses, they're the warriors, and they have like very strict code on their morality. And one, obviously he cannot be abusive to her. Also, like there's no lying. Being a liar is the worst possible thing that you can be. So when she's kind of bending the truth there at the beginning, he already views her as a murderer, and so he gets really angry, and he like makes a vow that if she keeps trying to tell him what happened with his parents, that he's gonna rip her tongue out, and like if he doesn't keep the vow, then he would be an oath breaker, which is just as bad as a liar, and all the things. So he's like really obsessed with her, but it's like hung up on the fact that he's pretty sure she killed his parents. The whole time you're just like, dude, I really like you, but you need to get your act together. Like you could be the power couple for this woman, but right now you don't deserve her. And I'm gonna need you to get on board and like have things start clicking on what you think really happened here. And there's a lot of things with the gods and with the world and, you know, all the political maneuvers that they're trying to negotiate. They're also on a road trip and all of that. There's content warnings for death of an animal, miscarriage, rape and abuse of other characters, etc. So definitely some heavier content, but if you like dark romance and or if you like adult fantasy, it's not going to be the darkest thing you've ever read, right? But I personally just think it's perfection and I look forward to rereading it at some point. Then I have Maybe Next Time, which is Vegas Nights #1 by Christina C. Jones. This is a novella. It's much shorter than the rest of these, and this is also Black love. Also is an established couple. It's a marriage in trouble. So the dubious consent on this is very light. So if you do want something safer, I guess this would be it. However, this does have a big content warning for miscarriage. That is the thing that kind of broke their marriage apart. The grief of that took them away from each other rather than drawing them closer together, and they're struggling, and they've been struggling. And so she files for divorce, and he's like, absolutely not. I love you, and I'm not letting you go. Whether you want to go or not, I'm not letting you go. And so he kidnaps her on vacation. And they're just the best. They're just the best. He is you know, having to deal with the fact that maybe he didn't handle things right, despite the love he has for his wife. Maybe he didn't give her everything that she needed, even when he thought he was doing what she wanted and what she needed. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he's equally to blame for where their marriage is. Maybe they both are. Maybe it wasn't anybody's fault. Maybe it's just something that happens in life, and that doesn't mean that they can't find their way back together. And it's just so sweet, steamy, a little bit dark, a little bit alpha, a little bit. It's good. It's real good. I've read it multiple times and it's just a favorite. Then I have Run Posy Run, which is Underboss Insurrection #1 by Katee Wells. This is a mafia romance with a psychopath. He is not the Don. He is a money man, and he basically, you know, has the golden touch. He can make them so much money, millions of dollars all the time, right? And so he has a longtime live-in girlfriend, and she has been with a couple other men in the mafia before him, but he doesn't seem to care. And he, you know, treats her like a queen. He buys her all the gifts, and he's so sweet and takes her on dates. Maybe he's a little aloof, and maybe he's a little cold sometimes, but he loves her, and she soaks that up like a sponge. Well, at the very beginning of the book, he is watching a video, and it is a video of her with someone else. And he is so angry and is like, I can't believe you cheated on me. And she's like, I didn't cheat on you. That's old. That's years old. That's revenge porn. And he won't listen to her. So he throws her out of the house pretty violently and is like, if I ever see you again, I'm going to kill you. So, you know, she leaves, and she was protected because she was with him, but the mafia doesn't like loose ends. And so she's now very much at risk of being killed by other people, with or without him. So she disappears. And he, you know, is sitting in his house and then is just flustered. He's just upset. He's bothered. And he decides it's because she's not there. And how dare she interrupt his routine? And you know what? He should have made her suffer. So he's going to get her back. But she's gone. So then a cat and mouse game ensues. And then he does get her back. And she, of course, has seen the real him now. She's learned some things. She's seen the real him. And he's a psychopath. He doesn't love her. He's incapable of feeling love. And he is thrilled that she knows this about him. However, he's really upset that she's acting differently. He's like, why can't things just go back to how they were before? You're back. I want what I had. And she's like, excuse, like, have you not been paying attention to everything that's been happening? We're not going back to the lovey-dovey thing where I was naive and thought everything was fine. This is not fine. And so he maybe discovers that he's a little bit obsessed with her, and she needs love and he can't love, and how can the two of them be happy? It's so good. Again, I've read multiple times. It's just an all-time favorite, and I really enjoy their mind games. Then I have Unhinged, which is Necessary Evils #1 by Onley James. This is a male-male romance, and it is sociopaths and psychopaths that have been taken in by this billionaire in a social experiment. And so he has taught them to take out abusers, etc., rather than becoming abusers themselves. So that obviously there's debate on whether they're born that way or made that way, but he finds all of these boys as children, some as old as teens, but often as young children, and he gives them all these skills and these alibis. You know, they're all famous for different things, but in reality they're vigilante killers and they enact justice. This is insta-lust, obsessed, over the top. When I'm reading sociopaths and psychopaths, I love for them to be just obsessed with the object of their desires, right? So maybe they don't love them, but obsession's, you know, a pretty close line there. So I love that, and I loved this one in the same way that I always love that. It's, again, very addictive, very popcorny, just intensely readable. Now this one, I will say, does deal with like child pornography, child sex trafficking, things like that. And the love interest is someone who has blocked out those memories but did have that happen to him as a child. So all of that is going to be a theme in this first book, so proceed with caution with that. But it was a good balance, I felt, between the like sweet love things and the obsession and the steamy scenes and then these dark topics. So I just really enjoy it. Then I have Bound, which is Wet in the Wild 0.5 by Aveda Vice. This is a prequel novella to a trilogy that is going to follow different characters. And this one was actually just banned on Amazon, even though it's been on Amazon for a year. But it was just banned on Amazon, so I will try and find the link that they've been sharing to get it on BookFunnel. So this is polyamorous Why Choose, and the full length that's coming out in March is going to be female, male, but like all 4 of them. But in this novella, we're really just doing FMM, so female, male. So we have a harpy and her entire clan has just been destroyed. We open on, you know, the aftermath of the battle, and she's had her wings cut, and she's has like a muzzle on and is bound and all the things, and her pack has been conquered, and they decide with the survivors that they're going to marry them off. So she's going to marry the female alpha of this other pack, because there are different things where like you have to break the bond, and there's things going on. So like you really feel for her, but at the same time, maybe who she served wasn't a good person and she didn't realize it, right? That type of thing. But like you really feel for her. So she's taken by her 2 enemies basically to go to the pack, and the female alpha that she's going to be married to is going to meet them there. So they have met on the battlefield many times. They've tried to kill each other many times, and they've always had like this competition, this draw to each other. Like anytime there's a battle, they're going to be there duking it out, you know? So they all have scars from each other and all the things. So, you know, they're traveling through the wilderness, and the 2 guys, which these are not shifters, they are humanoids with animalistic features. So like she's a harpy, and they are like a were lynx and a were something or other. Lynx? Maybe not. I don't know. But they're monsters, right? So the 2 guys are like blowing off some steam, and there's some interest. And this is not actually dubious consent. I'm going to be clear on that, because there is very clear consent every step of the way in this novella. And Aveda Vice is really good about consent at all times. Their consent is just fantastic, always. However, if you want that consent, but to play out with dubious consent vibes, that's very much what you're going to get. It's kind of like, you know, all you have to do is tell me no. All you have to do is tell me no. And I'm going to let you keep your pride. You know, you don't have to ask me to get you off. But like, let's be clear here. You're consenting to this, that type of thing. And there is hate effing. It is, you know, they're still enemies, but also there's that attraction, and it's all 3 of them, and there's a lot of kink play, so be aware of that. It's very kinky. This is not baby kink, baby monster romance. Like, this is the advanced. This is intermediate to advanced. It's not beginner. However, if you like those things, and again, if you want actual consent, you don't want to have to try and rationalize in your mind whether or not you can accept this character because of the lack of consent, but you want the dubious consent vibes, you want those steamy scenes, you want it to play out like that, then this is a great option for you. It's too hot for Amazon. I recommend you get it. I am really looking forward to the full length, so, you know, it's an author that I absolutely adore. But yeah, that's it. Those are all of my recommendations. Let me know if you have read or want to read any of these, or if you have any recommendations for me. Again, it's something I can be icked out by. It really depends on the author and how they do it. So thanks so much for watching. Bye.